are at Shelters by Jesus podcast, and we are so excited that you're with us, you're watching, you're listening, you're hitting subscribe, you're hitting like, you're sharing with your friends, because that brings money in. And if you want to help get people off the street, you go to sheltersbyjesus.com. If you'd like to give, it's $9. We'll get somebody off the street. We also have 4 books out written by the dumb hick from Skowhegan, me. And they have 2 prices, $10 are free. And you put your name and address right there and tell if you want books 1, 2, 3, or 4, all of them, we'll mail them right out to you. You also can call the office at 207-474-8833 and give them your name and address there, and they'll ship it. But the other thing you can do is get a tour. When you call that number, say, I'd like a tour, and you'll meet the residents. You'll see everything we have. And we're just excited about you being a part of this. So now, on to the podcast. Well, hi, and we got a special guest with us today. I'm so excited. His name is Tom. He's been on another podcast, but it was in the office talking about the administration and all that, but that's not what we want to talk about today. I want to talk about Tommy's past, and I've learned a lot about it. He has an amazing past. For those of you out there that think that the homeless are all illiterate, lazy, they don't have any skills, this young, well, he's a young man to me. You see his old beard. We call him the gnome now, but he didn't always look like the gnome. No. And he wasn't always at the shelter, but he's been on my staff for quite a while. He's an amazing administrator, but his skills from his past have really enabled him to be a good administrator here. So, Tom, I'd like to begin. You used to run a outfit in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, right?
Correct, yeah.
Catering. You want to tell us what that was all about?
Well, it was started off as just a deli. It was a deli, packaged goods, liquor store, and a bar.
Okay.
And I started there in '79, pretty much right out of high school or beginning of college. And over time, we built it up where it was an extremely busy deli, probably one of the busiest delis in Baltimore.
Really?
We were we were real close to the University of Baltimore in what was called the Arts District. And I was working, the owner and me got along great at that time, and I was working 60, 70, 80 hours a week.
Wow.
I was doing really good. I had my own apartment and just pretty much everything you could want. A little RX-7.
A what?
A little sports car RX-7.
Okay.
A Mazda RX-7. And,
oh, you were hot stuff back then.
I mean, when I was 20, and this is say 1980, I was making $30,000 a year.
In 1980.
In 1980.
That's like $130,000 now.
Pretty much, yeah. So I didn't pretty much want for everything, but what had happened was I was going to school part-time, college part-time. Right out of high school, I did a year of college at Blue Ridge Community College in Virginia.
What was you taking?
At that time, it was just general studies.
Okay.
But then I was working towards a business degree when I was taking classes in college in Towson, Maryland. But I had figured out that it would take me about 11 years to get a degree at the rate I was progressing.
Right.
And that just culminated with one winter. There was a snowstorm. I was working. The owner didn't want to shut the place down. I needed to get my car home. He took a catering order at 5 o'clock at night for some company, and I really didn't want to do it, but I was going to do it. And I went in the kitchen. I started doing my tray. It was a cheese tray.
Yeah.
And he came back and started telling me how to do it. Meanwhile, he didn't know how to do party trays. I did them all.
But he was going to tell you how to do it?
Yeah, he was just working on my nerves. and I walked out. I put the knife down, and
yep.
I just walked out. And as I'm going towards my car, I hear keys jingling. It was him running up behind me. And I told him, go away.
Yeah.
And so I quit, basically. And I decided I was going to go back to college full time.
Really?
And so that's what I did. I went back. I went to the University of, went to a little community college called Essex and got my associate's degree. And from there, I went to the University of Baltimore and I got my business administration degree, a BS in business.
You have a BS in business.
While I was doing that, I ran a restaurant. I was general manager of a restaurant at the Inner Harbor, which was a big deal at the time in Baltimore, a big tourist spot.
Now, what kind of restaurant is this? This is just a
Well,
general restaurant?
It was called the Soup Kitchen Restaurant. It was just basically a kind of high level restaurant. I mean, soup, salads, a lot of different seafoods.
Okay.
Real big in Baltimore. So I was doing that, finished my degree, met my wife through that company, that soon to be wife, and I graduated, got married, had my degree. The next thing you know, I got hired at Westinghouse
Okay.
as a purchasing administrator. So I was doing that, and that led into my own desk where I was ended up being a procurement specialist. And then in 1991, Westinghouse went under. And so while I had my resume on the street, I ran into the owner of the deli again, and he pretty much begged me to come back. And I really didn't want to go back, but the money was great.
Money talks, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, but it does, Tommy. That's how it is, man.
you know, actually, he had offered me a partnership back the first time I was there, but it ended. You know, that's kind of the carrot that I used to work so hard for. And then it was supposed to happen on my 23rd birthday.
Okay.
And so that day came. We went to the accountant's office, and the offer was I would be a partner. I would get 10% per year starting next year if I was ever fired or left on favorable terms. It wasn't in writing.
It was a handshake stuff.
So yeah, it was it was just nonsense basically.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there in the accountant's office, and they said, "How does that sound?" And I'm sitting there, and I said, "Sounds great." And right there, I knew writing was on the wall. Nothing was going to happen. So when I went back, and he's trying to entice me to come back, he throws out partnership again. And I said, "I'm not interested in a partnership.
Yeah.
I need money." And so I talked to him for like 6 weeks before I finally agreed to go back.
Really?
But I went back at a hefty salary. He said I could run things the way I want, and on and on. So I went back, and I worked again from 91 to 2003. And during that course of time, the deli, we had built that up into a catering operation. It's called corporate catering, basically, as opposed to event catering. And by the time I left, I was called general manager.
Okay.
But what I really did was run the catering operation.
You weren't just general manager.
No, general manager was my title.
Yeah.
I really wouldn't consider myself to be a GM. I didn't have anything to do with finances.
Okay.
But I built that corporate catering company up within our restaurant group to about $6 million a year.
Holy moly.
So we were pretty much Baltimore's largest corporate caterer. I could process up to about 100 jobs in a day. That was maxed out.
I just want to tell you, this doesn't sound like the story of a homeless man.
No. But, even as a young guy, I was probably, and people in my high school would consider me a heavy drinker.
Yeah.
I could drink a lot and function all through high school.
So you were a functioning drunk.
I was a B student, but that was without trying, basically.
Wow.
So, and then as time went on, especially the second time I was back at Jay's, and the pressure that I was under, I started drinking heavier and heavier. I was married. I had 2 stepdaughters. We had a son, and it was a great family. And I had a really nice house in a really great neighborhood called Cub Hill. Unfortunately, at that time, my wife had developed deteriorating disc disease in her neck. So she had to stop working. And when that happened, that was about 94. We lost about $30,000 a year of our income.
Whoa.
So I was like pressed to work more and more, and it was a lot of stress. But I continued it, and like I did that job as, like I consider the catering manager, and but it was extremely stressful. I had a few DWIs, they call them OUIs up here.
Yeah.
One in one in '84, which was nothing. But then I had another one in '95, one in 2000, and one in 2003. So I pretty much, the owner and I saw the company in different perspectives. We kept adding on restaurants, and we ran a big cafeteria at a local college.
Now, you say you had on restaurants. I mean, you serve in restaurants or you own restaurants?
We owned restaurants.
You owned
Well,
restaurants?
he owned restaurants, yeah.
So, okay, so he bought other.
Yes.
Oh, so it's more than catering now.
No, now it's way more than catering.
Wow.
And so his focus was he wanted to get into the restaurant business, which I couldn't understand because we were so successful with the catering.
Right.
And it was the catering that pretty much financed everything. If it wasn't for the catering, the restaurants couldn't have started up and lasted like they did because we basically supported it. Now, how that all worked out, I don't know, but I do know that his interests fell off from the catering. He wasn't interested in that anymore. He was interested in restaurants, which for the life of me, I couldn't understand. And basically, I wanted to expand to a closed shop commissary called Glenbury, Maryland, which is close to Annapolis, close to Columbia, Maryland,
Wow.
close to D.C.
You're close to a lot of population.
Close to, yeah.
Yeah, major.
So I wanted to bump it up, and he wanted to keep opening up restaurants. And so, and then there were some personal things that came up with him and the guy that ran our restaurants that I really don't want to elaborate on, but it was not morally good at all.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, I'm on the outside, and I pretty much dedicated my life to
that business.
To that business. I really, really did. And so I left again, and I opened my own catering company. It was called Bayleaf Catering.
Now, where'd you come up with? There's no Bailey in your name, so where'd you get Bailey's Catering Company?
Bayleaf.
Oh, Bayleaf. I thought you said Bailey.
No, Bayleaf.
Okay, what's Bayleaf?
It's just an herb for cooking that.
Okay.
It was just catchy, and we were in the Chesapeake Bay area, so Bayleaf Catering.
Bayleaf.
So, and I did that for almost 2 years, and I was building that up to the point where I literally had to run to the mailbox every day to get the checks to put in the bank to pay for the catering that I was getting ready to do. And so once again, I'm under an enormous amount of stress, and I was drinking heavily again.
Working 24/7.
Yeah, and the times that I was getting this, the last time I got a DWI, I was actually running Bayleaf Catering. And the only thing I could think of was that I'm going to jail.
Yeah.
Because this is number 4.
Whoa.
And so I was certain I was going to jail. The only thing that I had in my favor, in a sense, was that I had probably one of the best lawyers in Baltimore City.
That does help you.
He was a health arbitrator for the city. He had his own law firm.
Yep.
And he was able to go into court. We would go into court for my court date. And if it was a judge he didn't like, he would say there was a conflict with his
date,
with his city obligations.
Yeah.
So off we'd go. But I never knew every time we go whether or not I was going to court actually that day. But we did that like 4 or 5 times before he finally got the judge he wanted.
How big?
And so go in and gets the judge he wanted, and he got me out of that basically.
Wow. So you had.
But and during that time, believe me, the stress was so bad.
Wow.
I actually ended up at a mental institution called Shepherd Pratt in Baltimore about 3 times in 10 months while this whole court case was going on. I was just terrified that I was going to end up in jail.
Wow.
And if I did that, I was going to lose everything.
Yeah.
So bottom line was the last time I was at this hospital, they wanted me to go to another rehab, and I've been to several actually. And I sat there, and there was a group of doctors, and I said, if you want me to go there, I'll go. And I said, but I've got another kind of a plan in my mind. There was a house called the Oxford House. It was a sober living house. And I said, I'd really like to put myself there. And the trouble was my wife, who had cervical fusion operation in 95, she couldn't work anymore. And she pretty much, she wasn't working. and she was drinking. And every time I would try to get sober, I could just always tell that she had alcohol in the
Right.
house, and then I would slip and
You
just.
start drinking
And
too.
so, yeah, and so I said, I just can't do this anymore. I'm going to be dead.
Yeah.
And so I put myself in the Oxford House and I joined AA, and I did that for a long, long time, about 8 years. And during that time, I was my first job other than a restaurant group. I took a job as a security officer for a high rise in Towson, Maryland.
Security officer.
Yeah, I was a security.
Now, looking at you today, looking like the gnome, you don't look like a security
No, believe me,
officer.
when I was, I'm 62 now. When I was 52, I could have passed for 38. I look, I was fit. I used to be a runner and did a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
So, I ran a security thing in Towson, and it was there where there was a man living, an older man that did home improvements. And he asked me if I would want to come work for him. And so, meanwhile, that company that I worked for was being sold to the Berkshire Corporation out of Boston. And so I went up to him. I said, "Is that offer still standing?" He said, "Yeah." So I ended up working with him, and I did that home improvements for the next about 8 years until he pretty much had a second heart attack.
Wow.
And he couldn't work anymore. And meanwhile, I had accumulated some monies. I made good money working with him, and I had saved up enough where I'd always wanted to be living on the shore somewhere. And
Really?
I'd gone up and down the East Coast, taking little mini vacations here and there throughout the years. And I liked the beaches up north. So one thing I've kind of overlooked here is that when my son was born in '88, he was like the love of my life.
Yep.
And as a son, no one could have asked for a better kid.
Cool.
He was awesome. He always made good grades, great grades. He actually graduated high school with a higher than a 4.0 average because he was taking some college.
On top. Oh, he's
Yeah.
taking college. Oh, wow.
So, and he was athletic as all get out. When he was in high school, he played several sports, but as a senior, he concentrated on lacrosse.
Really?
And his team went 10-0, and they won the state championship, which they had never done.
Wow, you had been a proud dad.
I was proud, but that was still when I was at Jays.
Yeah.
And the sad part was, because I was committed to working so much, I couldn't make it to one of those games.
Really?
Not one.
Oh, man.
And that really bothered me.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
then, because of my drink later on, my son was in college, and I had told him he could come live with me for the summer in Baltimore. It was 1 year, and I was drinking, and I had to put myself back into a sober house.
Yeah.
And so when I did that, I'd totally forgotten that I had made the commitment for him to be able to come and live with me.
Oh, so
And so it was at that time he pretty much wiped his hands.
you say I'm done with it.
Yeah,
Dad.
and since that time, he's never talked to me again.
Oh, wow.
All I can say is, I don't blame him. I mean, I wish he wouldn't be like that. The way I kind of look at it is, there's nothing that he could ever do or did that I would cast him aside.
Yep.
But at the same time, he was extremely bright, and he's doing great today.
Praise God.
He graduated college, and he's had one good job after another. Great jobs. I don't know how much money he makes now, but it's probably in excess of $200,000-300,000 a year.
Wow.
So he's doing wonderful. So I'm so happy for him, and I've never once thought negatively of him for not talking to me. I've always put that burden on myself.
Yeah. Wow.
And so it was all the combination of things like that. At the end of my marriage, which actually I'm still married, I never got divorced, but
Yep.
the marriage is over.
Yep.
My son's not talking to me. My wife kind of went off, and so anyways, I came up north to be in a shore town, and I ended up in Old Orchard Beach.
Yep.
And I had about $12,000 at the time, and I was there for maybe 6 months, and money was running out. I started drinking there again, and because I was getting scared. And the trouble was, in Old Orchard Beach, it was like September, October. There was absolutely no work.
Yeah.
None.
Mm.
So here I'm in a little rinky-dink beach town.
With nothing to do.
Nothing to do.
Oh, boy.
And so I heard about the Trinity Church and Shelter.
Yep.
And I thought that would be great. And I really wanted to make amends, or well, that's not the right term, but get right with God. And what is it called when you?
What, rededicate?
Somewhat, yeah. I wanted
Yeah.
to be right with God. I
Yeah.
knew I messed
You
things
want
up.
to get back with God.
It was me, even though I used to work like crazy.
Yeah.
I look back on it now, and it's like, even though that's a positive thing for
Yep.
people, I really think that I should not have worked like I did, working 70, 80 hours a week,
Yep.
and doing it for the money. And basically, at the end of my marriage, I was a paycheck, and I just didn't feel justified in regards of kind of what I was trying to achieve, the success or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at me from an outsider, you'd think, oh, he's very successful.
Right.
But I didn't think of myself that way.
All the stuff you had, there's people that would. You got the education, you got bachelor's degrees, associate degrees, big paying job,
Yeah.
can buy whatever you want, driving a fancy car,
Yeah.
living in a good neighborhood.
Great neighborhood.
People would say, "Man, you've made it to the top."
Yeah.
So, what's life? We're winding down, but what's life been since you've been here?
Since I've been here, I wanted to, in my mind, I wanted to serve God and get right with God. And so I started doing that I wasn't here long before I was put on staff.
Right, you've been on staff for a lot of years with us.
And so I ran a kitchen
Yeah.
initially, and because of my background in the restaurant business, I was able to do that when we had little money.
And you did an awesome job, by the way, fantastic job.
So I did that for about 2 years, I guess, or
Yep.
so. And, I never once ever felt like, okay, I've done all this here at the church, and now I'm even.
Yeah,
Mm.
square.
I never felt that way, and I still to this day don't. Feel
I
that way.
hear you tell me.
I've been here 10 years. I've
Yep.
worked in the pantry.
Yep.
Now
you're the administrator in the office. You've been in the office for a few years,
about 6, 7 years.
and I'll tell you, your office skills.
Mhm.
I want anybody watching. I want to tell you, this guy's office skills are off the charts, man. We really depend on him big time. He does an amazing job.
So since I've been here 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, and I've really seen the shelter, the church, Shelters by Jesus, progress and evolve. It's been a really cool thing. Initially, we were just a men's shelter.
Yep, we were.
A little chaotic back then, to say
Yep.
the least. And then we started bringing in families, and of course, with families come children.
Yep.
And with the children, it sounds like it would be more chaotic, but in a sense, it was good for us because now we're used to just say anybody who walked through the door,
Right.
grab a bunk.
Oh yeah, it was just a bunch of men.
Yeah, and
just a
so
bunch
what
of
difference
guys.
did it make?
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
could straighten
sure.
anybody out if we had to.
Yeah.
And now with the children, we have to be careful about, we can't let, for example, if someone's a paranoid schizophrenic and they don't want to take medications, they can't come here. It's a
Because of the kids.
it's a possible a threat to the children.
Right.
And you don't know what that person's going to do. So now we do background checks, and I get pretty thorough with that. And in
You
doing
do an
that,
unbeliable job on background checks.
Columbo.
and
Yes, Columbo. That's a good term for it, Sam.
a lot of people come here from hospitals or places where they're rehabbing or some form of a crisis unit, and so I can ask for it's called an assessment report, and it's different diagnoses. But aside from the diagnoses, we get lists of prescribed medications.
Yes.
And one of the big prescribed medications that can be a real problem is Suboxone.
Yeah.
And for years people were coming here and we didn't know they'd had a script, and they weren't telling
Right.
us, and they weren't turning it in.
Right.
And so as a result, there was some drug issues. But now, over the past 3-4 years, we pretty much know anybody that's going to come here that's getting Suboxone.
Yeah, because of
we
the
know,
background.
We know up front, so we
Right.
tell them when they come here, you
Right.
you have to turn it in. It's
Yep.
issued as prescribed.
Yep.
And so all that nonsense pretty much came to a stop.
It did.
And that was a really good thing.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, you're such an important part of this. You have been for years, and I
Huge.
want people watching to know
Huge.
this guy has enough education and background to do anything he wants to do, but he's dedicated here. So, if
And
you've heard of his story, man,
He taught me how to be a director, how to be the director. So
you want to come around and say that?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah,
Because they can't even see you. Just come around. We'll say that. We'll close. We'll close with that.
yeah. I just wanted to say, Tommy taught me how to be a director. Taught me how to deal with the environment. Taught me how to be tighter on administration. Taught me how to put priorities in order. What's most important. What can wait. This place owes Tommy a great debt, an enormous debt, and we'll never be able to pay it back. But every morning, every day, Tom is here. He's in the office. He's taking care of people. So without Tommy, we couldn't do it.
So I wanted you to see everybody kind of takes a paintbrush and takes the homeless and does this.
Right.
Hopefully, through all of these things we're doing now, through our podcast, you're meeting residents, you're meeting staff, you're hearing backgrounds, you're seeing some of them are super educated. You can't just take a paintbrush. They aren't all the same, no more than anybody is in any way of life. The homeless are homeless because of situations, and they're all different, and they haven't lost their talents, haven't lost their skills.
Right.
And prayerfully, by the grace of God, they'll get back on their feet and move forward. And Tom is on his feet, but he's staying with us because we need him, and this now is his commitment back to God, and this is like his life is this ministry. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting like. And I pray that this has an effect on you as you look at Shelters by Jesus. Remember Tommy. Until the next time, y'all come back now.